So who is the real you? What are we like essentially as human beings? Frankl speaks about the unscathed human spirit. By that he means that we are fundamentally free to seek and to find meaning in life. Human consciousness, he said, is intentionally directed. It seeks an object to connect to come into interaction with, like reaching out to life and wanting to become part of it. Let's explore this concept of an unscathed human spirit, because Frankl said it's like we have to return to this pre-reflective, pre-moral self-understanding before reasoning starts in, just the intuitive feel of who we are and what it is we essentially need. I was privileged to watch a video at a psychology conference of two infants. One of a mother who was going to have to give her baby up for adoption, and another who was eagerly anticipating the birth of her child and had made all the preparations to receive that child into her world. And the mothers were filmed with the babies a few hours after their birth. Now, the mother who had to give up her baby, and can you imagine her anguish at having to do so, held it in a kind of a stiff way, away from her, almost not wanting to look at the baby. But the reaction of the baby was so fascinating because it stiffened and started screaming. And it was a most eye-piercing scream, like a scream of terror, of not being able to connect, and the fearfulness of that experience. In comparison to the neonate of the second mother who wanted her child, she took it so warmly and lovingly in her arms, rocking it. And, her whole being was just beaming love and almost communicating to the little neonate, I'm so glad you're here, my child. I've wanted you. You are part of me. I've called you by name. You are mine. And the experience of that baby was so fascinating because the little one was kind of limp in the mother's arms, becoming almost symbiotically one with her. And there was little sounds of contentment coming from the baby. Oh my word, what a graphic illustration of our fundamental need to connect. I had an experience with an autistic boy. He was 12 years old and in a school for cerebral palsy children. This was so many years ago, before there were even schools for autistic children. And his behavior was so wild and desperate that the school couldn't handle it anymore. This was now a boy who'd never made eye contact, like a normal 6-week-old baby that have felt the security enough to come into its eyes, so to speak, and make eye contact with the mother and give the first little social smile as if to say, hello, I've sensed you before, but now I see you. And it's the beginning of a kind of a face-to-face kind of relationship. That has never happened with autistic children, perhaps due to a sensory motor malfunctioning, where the child just cannot be awakened enough in terms of expressing outreach that the mother can connect to. And the mother very fearfully withdraws from a baby that's not reacting. And that starts a very pathological process. His behavior was unacceptable because he was desperate to be playing with what at that time was still film reels on spools, programs that were filmed by the school of their cerebral palsy treatment methods. And if he could ever get hold of this, he'd unroll the spools and take the tape and bring it to his mouth and, almost tear it and look through it. And they felt this was enough. But his teacher was very upset because she sensed that he was a very intelligent boy, and the school's decision to send him to a school for the mentally retarded very much upset her. She suggested that he should have a last chance of therapy with a new psychotherapist that was appointed, which happens to be me. And this started a most fascinating process. When I met him, he just moved around me as if to pick up who I am. And he must have picked up my warmth, my interest, my openness towards him, because he ran to the end of the room where there was a wash basin and opened up the faucet and drank greedily from it while looking at my breasts. That comfort contact of breastfeeding between a mother and child. And it started what I then decided to be a yes game, because I noticed that he was forever being told, no, 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 especially not to go to the headmaster's office where these film reels were kept in a steel cabinet. He would stand there and bash his head against the cabinet, sometimes even bleedingly being taken away from there. And I asked the headmaster if I can change those film reels, and I put in old ones there. And when I had my first session with him, I took him by the hand and I said, come. And took him to the headmaster's office. He could hardly believe this. That was off limits. I opened the steel cabinet and I said, take. He couldn't believe it. He grabbed it as if I was going to take it from him, and then began a therapy in the playgrounds where he would unroll these spools and bring them to his mouth, but now in a more relaxed way. And it came to the time that he was relaxed enough with me and trusted me enough that I could ask him into my office, close the door from all the prying eyes, and he began to play a very symbolic game where he would unroll the tape from the big film reels onto a smaller one, as if taking from me. And sometimes he'll give a little bit back to me, to the day that he actually equalized the tapes between the two spools and took my scissors and cut through the tape, looked up at me and made eye contact for the first time in 12 years. The first thing he did was to jump up, run to the classroom of his teacher, take a piece of chalk, write on the blackboard a row of numbers, drew a line and put the answer, as if to say, you knew, you had faith in my intelligence, and I'm proving it to you now. A yes experience. And I'm ending with a poem by a student of ours that eventually became a trainer in logotherapy, who found her healing through logotherapy as a result of childhood sexual abuse. And she wrote this wonderful poem. Listen. Born to be. How lovely the sweet spirit who lives within. How beautiful is she. She's true and wise and full of love, as she was born to be. Her nature truly is divine, for she was created so. God the Father's love for her, He wants her to always know. So He sent her to this world to live and has given her tests and trials. And though she struggled very hard, He blessed her with His smiles. No trial could ever destroy her, no one's cruelty, because her spirit who lives within is strong enough, you see. And all those who've never believed in her will not cause her to give in. For her spirit who lives upon this earth never forgets where she has been. She keeps heaven in her memory and has carried it throughout her life. It's been the strength she's held on to through all her trials and strife. How lovely, this sweet spirit who lives within. How beautiful is she. She's true and wise and full of love as she was born to be.